This is the booth. This is where you'll be doing most of your work as the light operator, light board operator, and light designer. Before you start doing your light design, there are a few things you need to know. First is in the light booth, you will find things as the light board, sound board, 2 spotlights, and the sound closet and the light closet, which are downstairs. Your primary concern is the light board and also the stage. So before we can start actually designing lights, we need to talk about what light design actually is. Now, the stage is divided up into 15 general areas, well, our stage at least. These 15 general areas are lit up by other lights. However, general areas typically have more than one light in them in order to provide the proper amount of light for each section. This is a typical dimmer that you'll see. Now, these are hung from the catwalk and all 3 electrics. This one, for instance, is a 36-degree dimmer. You'd probably hang this one on one a little bit closer to the stage instead of farther away. So that probably means about the 2nd or 3rd electric. Now, the dimmer is, like I said, an individual light that you then patch into a general area. Dimmers are made up of lamps, which are contained in the tops of them. Now, these little halogen lamps provide all of that light. When changing these bulbs, it's very important not to touch them, as the oils on your fingers will cause them to explode when they get really, really hot. We'll talk about changing bulbs a little bit later, but it's important for you to know that. They're also connected to the light system by these plugs. Now, these 3 represent the in, the out, and the ground. It prevents you from getting electrocuted if something horrible goes wrong, but don't worry, it doesn't happen that often. It's only happened to me once. So, those are dimmers. As you can see from this, there's a nice circle of light that's lit from both the right hand and the left hand side. Well, you probably can't see the light coming from both the right and the left, which is a good thing. This is the ideal position as a light designer. You want them to look like this. Let me show you a little bit worse example of a general area by bringing up general area 2. As you can see, the portion of the stage that's lit is a bit wider than a circle, and it looks a little obtuse. And you can also clearly see the 2 different types of light shining from both the left and the right. An even worse example is general area 1. This is an example of what happens when you light a general area with only one dimmer. As you can see, the light is going in only one direction, and this would cast a very strange looking shadow of the actor on the stage, making them look like a giant. We don't want this. So that's why you want to stick to a general area that looks a little bit more like general area 3. After you get all the lights hung, you'll probably want to wind up programming all the different things that you're going to want in the show. In order to do that, you'll have to know how to operate the board, unless of course you have somebody who will do that for you, but you typically don't have that luxury here at MHS. So, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the basics of programming the board. When you're ready to start programming the board, you set the stage to how you want it to look. So I'm going to go ahead and set it to bring up the first 5 general areas. And then you record it to a cue. Cueing a show is when you record a bunch of different things for the lights, then you can just press this go button and it'll cycle through them at whatever pace you choose. So to record a cue, you set the stage how you want it, and then you press record, cue, you type in the cue number. I'm going to type in something ridiculous like 265, 65, enter, enter, release, release. Then you can bring down all your sliders, and then you can go ahead and test it by pressing Q 265, go. And it'll bring up what you've done. You can press clear to get rid of anything that's on the stage. To manually record a cue, if you don't want to have to bring up areas on the stage, like I don't right now, I don't want to use any of the sliders. So I'm going to record a cue that uses channels 1 through 5 without having to move sliders. This is helpful for editing cues that you've already made. So but of course I'm going to make a new one. So what I'll do is channel 1 through 5 at full. Now see how that brings up all the areas here at full intensity. You can also see the readout on the monitor. So now I'm going to record that by doing it the same way. Just record, cue, should be already selected. You don't have to press it. 265, enter, release, release. Now this is where the pressing enter twice and pressing release twice is very important, because when you're recording manually, you have to make sure you release the channels, otherwise they'll stay up for the rest of your cues. Also, with the new board layout that we have, you want to make sure that area 84 slider is turned down. Those are the house lights. If you're not careful, you'll forget to take that out, so the house lights will also come up during the cue. If you ever run into any problems, or you want to find out more information about what a certain button does, which I highly recommend you do, you can press help and then any button on this board, and it'll tell you and give you a brief description of what it does. For example, I press help sub. This will tell me all about how to select submasters, record submasters, and group submasters, which is a useful tool to use later on when you get a little bit better at light design. Then you can just press any key to continue. Watch, I'm going to press record and it won't do anything except clear the screen. It's also very helpful to back up your shows. Here we have two macros already set. One from macro 1 entitled write, one from macro 2 called read. Unfortunately, macro 2 doesn't actually read a show from the disk, it just shows you the cue list for the current show programmed to the board, so you don't really have to worry about that one. However, write is very important. In order to write your show to a disk, you have to input a floppy disk to the back of the board, which is here, into that slot there. Floppy disks are found in this blue little container. I'm going to go ahead and take one out right now just so you can see. And you can pretty much record over any one of these. Doesn't really matter much. Just don't change the master. We don't use it much. I don't even know if it's correct, but it says don't change, so I wouldn't. I wouldn't use this one either. That looks important. This one's important. This one's important. Anything else is free game.